Hey everybody, Chris Lano here with IPD behind the camera, and I'm standing next to Bud Kogel. Welcome to episode 7 of the XC70 V8 project. We appreciate everybody who's been following this project. It's been a lot of fun. Obviously, we got the V8 in the car. We've been driving it, working out a lot of the bugs. We got a lot of accessories done on the vehicle, but right now we're getting into more accessories. We're actually coming out, if you're watching this episode, you saw the last episode where we actually finished the rack and the rinse kit system. We took the rack off the car because the rack, or the car is currently at wrap. That's going to come up in a future episode, or possibly this one. We'll see how fast and what the timeline looks like. But the car is currently getting some stuff done to it. We've got some surprises for you. But in this episode, we're going to talk about lighting. We've been working with our partners at PIAA. For all of you that aren't familiar with PIAA, they're one of the industry's leader in the highest quality lighting accessories that are out there, heavy into the motorsport industry. For many years, PIAA was right down the street from us at IPD. They worked with us on past projects, SEMA projects and builds, and those guys have always supported us with all of our projects, and it's been awesome. We love their lights, and honestly, I wouldn't outfit any other light on my vehicle. I'm really excited that they supported us so well with this particular project. We also sell lights like the LP270s that are on the R right there. We sell that in a kit, and we also installed those on our XC70 V8 project. So, Bud has out here, we're getting ready to fab up just some things, some shop stuff that we have, just little things. Bud's looking around for certain hardware that we can manipulate and make work on our current racking system. But Bud's already going through all of the PIAAs, and why don't you go ahead and talk about the PIAAs that we got here and what you're thinking about what the best way to install these on the rack would be.
Well, we got two PIAA 18-inch light bars. These are the RF18s. They make these in an RF6, in an RF10, and an RF18, so those are just the different lengths. So PIAA is very unique in their LED lighting with these. They use a rear-facing LED and reflects it forward, so it's a more direct beam pattern. Other light bar companies will just, to get that beam, they'll have 100 LEDs scattered across the front. Right. So you'll see a bunch on Amazon. These are very high quality. It's all aluminum. So one of the key things with these light bars that we like, besides the way that they do the beam pattern, is they come with pieces that allow you to hook them together to make whatever size light bar you want. So you can couple them with the shorter ones if you're looking to build a very specific width. Right. You can achieve that by matching up different length light bars. This, we went with the 218s because that's about what the width of this rack is. So it's going to fill up very nicely across the front there.
Basically, this is their quad series, the LED cube lights. They're LED as well. But talk about where ditch lights are. Maybe we can use a demonstration on the R. You can kind of show what you're going to be doing. We're in the process of fabbing up a bracket that Bud's been working on. But ditch lights are really cool accessory. You see them on a lot of 4x4 trucks, a lot of off-road vehicles. You see them on overland vehicles, Jeeps, things like that. But basically, there is something that we do have to develop and design here in-house that we will make so people can install ditch lights on their car.
So again, PIAA is really good. They include just about everything that you would need outside of a bracket to mount it to the car where we're going to mount it.
Go ahead and show it, demonstrate it on the R here.
Essentially, they call these ditch lights because when you're off-roading, you're going to have these up here by your windshield, and you're going to have these angled out and down a little bit so it illuminates the side of the road, or if you're off-roading so you can see any obstacles, or if you're going to actually drive into a ditch. That's where they got the name.
Right. And what are you thinking? I know that you've been out here working on some brackets and some ideas. Obviously for the P3 it's different, but we'll just demonstrate what you're going to do to make this work.
So because the clearance is so tight, it is going to take a little bit of work, but we're going to pick up on one of these hood hinges here on the XC70, have a bracket that extends out, follows the contour, and comes up here so we can mount the light. Essentially, it'll move with the hood.
Right.
Now the clearance is tight.
Hood, it'll be there, right?
You just got to make sure that you have the spacing correct so it doesn't run into the windshield.
Right. Cool. That's another thing that we'll go over once we get the brackets fabricated and modified and manufactured for us. That is a product that we'll work on, so that way people can choose their own ditch light or go with PIAA. We highly recommend the PIAA light. But other than that, that's what's going on out here in the shop for the XC70 project at the moment. So cool. Well, we're going to get going and start modifying some of these brackets so we can mount them to the rack. We do have to take apart the front of the rack to be able to slide in some of the bolts or the captive nuts for the bolts to go into. So we're going to get started on that now. All right, now that we fabricated or made some brackets out of some materials we had here in the shop, basically cut the right holes in them, what's going to happen is we're going to mount those to the front of the rack. This one right here, as you can see, it's got a little right angle on the back, so it mounts to the back. These bolts slide into this track, and then it basically comes around the front, and then the light will sit right here on that bracket out the front, so that way, hit it.
All right, so we made some brackets here that wrap around the rack. It's gonna be super rigid once we get everything tightened down. We're gonna take the two lights, after we join them together, we're gonna mount them just like that.
All right, Bud just got the lights mounted on the brackets, got them spaced correctly, we've got them in series here. Looks really good. Obviously, once we get the car back and get the rack mounted back on top of the car, we can go ahead and wire it all in, because Bud's already thinking about some ideas of how we're gonna basically make one harness out of the multiple harnesses that we have. So, come out pretty good. We'll have to do some final adjustments once it's on the car, but nice job, PIAA. This looks fantastic. Can't wait to get on the car. Stay tuned. Back at it with the lights. After we made some brackets, we just figured that we have so many lights, we have options for this car, that we decided to add some ditch lights at a little bit of higher level on the rack to add towards the side of the vehicle. Obviously, as Bud explained earlier, we were looking at making a bracket, which we will do, but for the time being, we want to get these mounted quicker, and we have a couple of sets of these that we thought it'd be great to go ahead and mount these ones up on the rack. So we made an additional bracket, tied into the T-channel, but just got them all finished and mounted.
Just really wanted to complete the look and go all the way across the bar. We didn't really like the dead space that it was leaving, so since we had these, we just figured we'd use them and span the entire front section of this rack.
Looking forward to getting the car back and getting this rack mounted to it, and then next we'll be wiring all this up. Bud, why don't you go and talk a little bit about what we did with the amperage draw tests and basically consolidating everything into one wiring harness for the front set here, since we're going to have multiple lights on the back, but we're going to probably do all this at once, being LED.
So because we're going to run these down the A-pillar, there's a piece of trim on the vehicle that you can take off. It's got a rubber seal, and you can run some wires down in there. But as you can see, if we were going to try to run all 4 wires down there to the wiring harness, it would start to get really bulky to run through there. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut off some of these plugs. We're going to solder some of the wires together and consolidate them, and hopefully just go down to 2 wires down to the harness and then inside to the switch. So we have a 12-volt power supply that will tell us amperage draw. We hooked all this stuff up, and we're just running about a draw of 15 amps with all the lights. So since the main wiring harness has a 20 amp fuse, we should be good, and these wires should be able to handle that just fine.
All right, like Bud mentioned earlier, we did an amperage draw test across all the lights together because we want to run this into one switch into the car down the A-pillar of the vehicle. And what we decided with the wiring is we wanted to tuck it up behind this rack as much as possible. And I know a lot of people might look at this and be like, man, what are you guys doing? But we basically just integrated a wiring harness that goes all the way along this whole thing here. Ends up right here where we got to basically plumbed into our 12-volt tester, our bench tester. But what we want to do is we want to have a connector here, so that way we can disconnect it, which we have, and we'll solder that into this wiring loom here. So that way, if we ever remove the rack from the vehicle, the wiring harness that goes down the A-pillar will just stay there with a little connector there. So that way we could remove the rack with all the lighting and accessories on it without having to, you know, cut things or disconnect anything else from the rack itself. It'll all be one piece and very modular. So we just basically wired everything in together, tucked it in behind the brackets into this channel here, the T-channel on the back of the rack. The wiring harness is all one single wiring harness running all the way through, so it's all tucked up and nice and neat. And then basically the connector, which we have up to the 12-volt tester here, is going to end up hanging down over here by one of the feet with a little connector, so that way we can disconnect it. So Ken, go ahead and hit the switch on the 12 volt bench tester here so we can, this is only running at like what, 6 or 7 volts? Woo! 6.
7.
Yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, almost 7. So got the ditch lights, made sure our wiring loom works, everything's plugged in. Yeah, we can't wait to see what these puppies look like when we run, you know, 12 to 13 volts through them. So we're really happy with the way it came out. Almost done. We'll do some more video once we get it mounted up on the car and plug it in and wire it into the rest of the vehicle. All right guys, Chris Delano here. I am standing outside of Kolor-Werx in North Portland, about ready to go inside and see my good friend Kevin Mead, who owns Kolor-Werx. He's got this big, huge, beautiful building here that he does wraps. He's done a ton of IPD's projects in the past, and there is nobody that I trust more than Kevin at Kolor-Werx to wrap a vehicle. So we're gonna head on inside. There is the XC70 V8 project getting worked on. Hasn't been cleaned yet. Kevin's just actually finishing up all the wrap. Ken came over to help put some pieces back together on the car. But what we did is we went with a matte, like a dark grayish color with a little bit of a hint of blue in the topograph. We have a topographical map that goes all over the entire vehicle. It's probably hard to see in this. When you look at the hood, you'll be able to see a topographical map that goes all over the entire vehicle, and actually that topograph is of Mount Hood in our local area. And it basically, that theme goes all over the entire car with a matte finish. Kevin also did some really cool detail work on the logos. It's got like a little topographical map inside of our logo on top of it to complete the theme. V8. Here's a logo he did on the hood that's a little bit easier to see. See the topograph through the logo. It's very cool, and that goes throughout the entire vehicle. Right now we're finishing up some some emblems, putting together some pieces. But yeah. All right, here's the man, Kevin Mead right here, owner of Kolor-Werx. He's working on our emblems on the car right now. And again, the small details of this project, you just won't beat anybody better than Kevin over here, spending time on every little emblem for us on the vehicle. And honestly, a lot of wraps out there that I've seen, a lot of people would actually just wrap and cut. Kevin, can you just talk about that a little bit, like what some people do that you've seen out there with really shoddy jobs?
Yeah, a lot of
we don't need to name names.
Yeah, a lot of people won't take the badges off because they're kind of afraid to, or it's just too much work. And you know, and it is a little bit of work, so you got to go back and put all the VHB back on it again. But you know, those are the little details that make a difference. So.
Right. And Kevin's done our project cars, SEMA cars, all the any wrap we've ever done with our project cars. Kevin's been the guy to do it, and honestly, we just dropped the car off and let his imagination fly. And I told him I wanted a topographical map, but I wanted it to be subtle. And he came up with the colors that wanted to go on, or that went on this car, that basically fit the theme that we've done in this mat, with this really cool topographical map that goes through in a little bit of a bluish hue. It's really awesome. So he's just finishing up all the small details on the car, but again, nobody does it better than Kev. And he even came up with this really cool idea when he printed the IPD logo. He put that topographical map inside the IPD, which I never would have thought of. I just told him, man, come up with something, and he did it. It just looks so incredible on the car. He did one of those there and down here on the door. Yeah, it's just coming out beautiful. So if anybody's looking for custom wrap jobs, custom jobs for their vehicle or their babies, like I said, Kolor-Werx. Nobody better around to do it, but it is hard to get him freed up to do it because he's a high demand dude. He's one of the OGs. I call him the godfather of the car wraps. At least that's what I tell all my friends. I'm like, you're the original dude.
I'm feeling like one old G.
welcome back to episode 7 of the XC70 V8 project. Yesterday we picked up the car from Kolor-Werx with the matte wrap, and also showing all of the really amazing topograph basically theme that we did. Kevin over at Kolor-Werx did a fantastic job. We got the car back here. We mounted our Thule platform rack up here with all of our PIAA lights and the rinse kit. Obviously earlier in the episode you saw Bud going over the PIAA lights and getting those mounted and how we did the wiring. But now the fun part is getting the wiring into the car. So Ken and I already this morning started with removing this A-pillar cover here, and we took the sheathing off of our wiring harness for the lights, the PIAA wiring harness. So we ran the 2 little wires right down through here. Basically it pops out up above this guy, and then we have it zip tied to the rack where we have a quick disconnect under here. So if we remove the rack, we don't have to remove all the wiring with it. We basically just disconnect this, leave the wiring all in place, and the rack can come off the car. Obviously we'll clean all this up, but yeah, right now we're just basically putting the wiring down into the car, tucking it all underneath the cowling, and then we'll run the switch back through the fender and into the interior of the car. So we got a little bit of work to do, but right now Ken's dismantling all the plastic pieces that are always fun, and we'll tuck all the relay, pick up power and ground on the battery, and go from there. Okay, now that Ken has figured out where we're wiring everything, we will pick up on our fuse because we got a relay for this wiring harness. We'll pick up on a fuse here. We tapped up to the power and ground off of the battery. Basically the relay's hidden up there underneath the cowling, underneath the wiper assembly, but the switch that runs everything, that turns on the lights, it's got an auxiliary light on it, and it's got power and ground. That we routed back down through the fender, and when you go down through the fender, the plug basically ends up down there for the harness in between the door jamb, and then there's a plug down here on the side in between the door jamb that we disconnected, drilled a hole in it, rubber grommet, went back in, came back up through this piece. We use a lot of this access for like boost gauges, boost routing, things like that, but this time we used it for our auxiliary switch. This is where the PIAA light switch is going to be. We're going to go and sticky tape it right here, and then that way should work. We'll button it roll up. Okay, we just got everything buttoned up under the hood. All the wiring, the relay, the switch is inside. Ken just jumped in the car. Woo. Go on, hit those babies. So real quick, oh yeah, there we go. So we got the ditch lights, the 18-inch RF series LEDs. Everything on there is LED, and man, they are bright. I can't wait to see these at nighttime. The ditch lights are crazy bright. Woo! I'll do some vids out here at night. We'll get some reviews up on the YouTube channel, but this is fantastic. So it looks great. Nice. All right, everybody. Well, that wraps up episode 7. All the accessories with the lights, the wrap, and we got everything up there, but we'll be doing more updates and stuff like that on our social media channels and on our blog when we get that posted here on the V8 project. But yeah, I'm super happy with everything. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode.